There's nothing like being a kid. Not a care in the world, not one single responsibility. Just fun and happiness. For me in particular, I always look forward to leaving school and going home. Afterwards, I would just sit for the afternoon and watch real TV. But it was in that real TV that I stumbled across a show that would haunt me up until very recently. This is Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, a British animated TV show that ran from 2000 to 2006, though a brief remake of the show was aired from 2011 to 2012. The entire show spanned across 8 seasons, and it has garnered a cult following which I am proudly part of. So much so that I have a full playlist of every episode ever made on my channel. But enough of that. This show is terrifying. It's just so dark and twisted, especially for something intended for kids. In this video, I'll be going over the entirety of the show, from the good, the bad, and the one that traumatised me as a kid. But, without further ado, let's dive into Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, the show that traumatised an entire generation. The original show, called Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, is based on a children's book series written by Jamie Ricks. The books themselves followed a similar title scheme to the series, with the show using the same name as one of the books, and the show used stories from the actual books themselves. All of the tales would follow the same basic premise: introduce an insufferable character, and have them meet an untimely demise at the end of the episode. These fates can range from not existing at all, to something that looks like it belongs in the next Saw movie. The show is animated in the traditional 2D style, but due to the show's low budget, the animation suffered slightly, and it led to everything looking slightly off. But that does enhance the show's creepy aesthetic, and almost makes it better. The beginning and end of each episode have short stop-motion segments featuring a sprawled spider named Spindleshanks and a creepy old man named Uncle Grizzly. They would sit up in the projector room at the Squeam screen cinema, which is the sort of hub of the show, where a lone young boy would sit with his bucket of creepy crawly popcorn. There, the grisly tales would play on the screen, and the viewer would experience a form of terror found nowhere else. I'm not going to go into depth about whether or not I like the episodes, because I do actually want to do a video ranking every episode in the entire 8-season series, but I do want to talk about a few of the episodes. That being said, the Barber of Seville. Love that name. I'm just going to be going over this episode in its full, and then I'll mention a few other good ones. The Barber of Seville focuses on rude children, and particularly Tanya and Peregrine, who are apparently the rudest of the rude. At their school, a strange barber walks in holding a rather suspicious jar of what we are led to believe are slugs. He tells Tanya and Peregrine that they need to stop by his shop for a quick haircut. It's worth noting that he only told them this after they were rude to him. After school that day, the two misfits go to the barber shop while it seems empty. That jar comes back again, and once more we're told that the jar's contents consist of only slugs. Peregrine pretends like he's about to eat one, but after the barber unexpectedly walks in, he drops the slug into his mouth and swallows it. He then sits down in the chair and the lesson of the episode unfolds. The barber gives this really weird and creepy monologue about how he trims off the cheekiness and washes their mouths out with soap and water. Then he cuts both Tanya and Peregrine's tongues out and puts them in his jar. Which is then we find out that his jar isn't full of slugs, and it is stuffed with tongues of the rude children he's collected. And it's made sure we know this.
Do you still want to know what's in this jar? Shan't tell you.
I know I said I wasn't going to talk about my opinions on these episodes, but this really is one of my favourites, as it really does show what Grizzly Tales is all about. Show an annoying character, have something bad happen to them. Bunny Boy has a boy who refuses to eat his vegetables and is promptly shredded by a combine harvester, and then sewn back together again along with the body parts of his dead pet rabbit, who is also caught in the machine. Lovely. Silence is Golden follows a girl who is always shouting, and is then encased in gold and dropped to the bottom of the ocean. You just can't make this stuff up. Now I would like to point out that in the New Year's special, which is technically the last episode of Season 4, The Crystal Eye, we see some new things that carry over into Seasons 5 and 6. 1. They get rid of the stop motion, and 2, they replace the opening theme. Now I dislike both of these changes for different reasons. Regarding the newfound lack of stop motion, the show loses some of that eerie vibe as the stiff movements of stop motion are incredibly effective in conveying creepiness. As well as this, I just adore stop motion in general. One of my favourite films is The Nightmare Before Christmas, and part of the reason why I love it so much is because it's stop motion. It's a medium that's really underutilised, and whatever stop motion is used in the new seasons, it's always recycled. Something that isn't recycled, however, is the new theme song. It really isn't terrible. In fact, it's actually quite a good Halloween jam. The original theme, though, is just leagues ahead. Here's a side-by-side comparison. Watching that back, you probably noticed something else that changed. The title card. For some bizarre reason, they changed the title card. The original one is filled with so much life and mischief, whereas this newer one is just flat and the lightning around it isn't as defined. So I think we can also put Grizzly Tales into the category of oversimplified logos. Now, I didn't mention something else they changed. The animation started to use something called motion tweening, which unfortunately does make the show's tight budget show through. Even with this though, these two seasons are still the same quality as the original four. Some episodes good, some not so good. Now, if you're any good at maths, you may have picked up on the fact that all these changes took place on the 5th season and carried through into the 6th. But if you recall at the beginning of the video, I said that the show spanned across a total of 8 seasons. So where did the last 2 come in? Well, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids suffered a 6-year hiatus from 2006 until 2012, which is when Uncle Grizzly's half-brother took over in the new Nickelodeon show, Grizzly Tales. After the wild success of the original show, it was quite clear that it was time for Grizzly Tales to make a comeback, and so Nickelodeon took it upon themselves to rehash the show and get it back up and running for a newer age. Instead of the Squeam screen cinema, this same boy would travel to the Hotel Darkness, or, to give it its proper title, the Hot Hell Darkness. There we would meet Uncle Grizzly's half-brother, who dons the name, or possibly nickname, the Night Night Porter. And in each episode, the Night Night Porter would tell us, the viewer, the day's story. This show would actually follow the exact same format for the episodes as the original Grizzly Tales did. Also, I should point out that this show is actually called Grizzly Tales, instead of the longer Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids. But sometimes the show is referred to as Grizzly Tales, Cautionary Tales for Lovers of Squeam, directly quoting the original. Anyway, both shows are formatted in the same way. Show an annoying character, have something bad happen to them. In fact, this isn't the only similarity between the two shows. They both feature a normal building twisted by a creepy old guy voiced by Nigel Planner and who hates kids. They both feature the same child reluctantly going to this building, and they both reuse the same segments in each episode. It's one thing I'll give this new show. It's consistent and loyal to the original. One thing I won't give it though, is the 2D animation. Because, well, to put it kindly, it looks absolutely terrible. Look, I understand this show wasn't given a very good budget, but come on. Each episode is filled with a horrific combination of bright colours, terrible character design and constant motion tweening. It's to the point where if I hadn't have watched these two series, I couldn't have told you that it was Grizzly Tales. At least the only difference between season 4 and 5 is the motion tweening. They still have the same art style. It's not like these newer episodes are the same quality as the original 6 seasons either. They don't seem to be as thought out as the original. Maybe I'm the only one, but this set of episodes was very hard to get through. There are a handful of episodes that I did enjoy, however. For example, the spelling bee follows a girl named Penelope who doesn't know how to spell, so she trains a bee to cheat for her in her school's upcoming spelling bee by having it sit in her ear and tell her exactly how to spell words. Unbeknownst to her though, the bee she picked out was a queen bee, and as we all know, bees form their hives around queens. So the queen's colony turned Penelope into a human beehive from the inside out, where we get quite a detailed shot of the aftermath at the end of the episode. Another good episode is Nails in Her Coffin, where a girl wanting to be a cat ends up drowning in a swimming pool, but her fingernails kept growing after death, and she waved from inside the grave towards her house. Also, I particularly enjoyed the messaging of the very final episode, The Nuclear Wart, in which we are told that we shouldn't let warts grow over silly little arguments, because wart is hell. And it's pretty clear what the screenwriters were trying to say if you take away the T from wart. All in all, a very mixed series, but unfortunately mostly bad. I think Grizzly Tales should really make a comeback in the near future. But hey, even if it doesn't, we still have these 8 seasons to look back on. But there is one episode I haven't talked about yet. One episode that I hold dear in my heart. The episode that traumatised me deeply when I was a child. So this part's going to be a bit different. It's more of a childhood story, but I will break down the plot of the episode. So with that out of the way, let's dive into some memories. But before I do, I want to give a huge thank you to the channel SteveReviews, as without his Grizzly Tales video, I probably never would have found this series and could never have made this episode. So basically, I was scrolling on YouTube and on my feed this video came up, and something about it struck me as familiar, like I'd seen it before. Naturally, I clicked on the video, watched it through, and immediately did my research. I wanted to find the episode that I watched as a kid, and remembered something about an old man swapping bodies with a child. So I looked up Grizzly Tales Body Snatchers episode, and the first thing that came up was this: The Old Tailor of Pelting Moor. I was sceptical at first, but ended up giving it a watch. The thing that would set in stone of whether or not this was the right episode would be if it lined up correctly with my memory. And the part that I remember clearly was two people standing in front of a stone archway, one ugly, one not. It was stormy outside, and the ugly one said, "You've made me into you." And sure enough, at 8 minutes and 6 seconds into The Old Tailor of Pelting Moor, we get this exchange.
And what are all these wrinkles? You're wearing my skin and I'm wearing... You've made me into you!
I was ecstatic. I could finally relive my childhood terror without being traumatised. But what was my childhood terror? Well, I call this tale... No, I'm not going to do that. I'll just tell you what happened from my memory. So I was around 7 and I was sitting down watching TV. It was the evening and I was kind of in my own little world. But I quickly snapped out of it when all of a sudden... I was immediately cautious in a curious sense, so I continued watching. The first thing that really creeped me out was Uncle Grizzly's walk across the projector. There was something so off about it, and to be fair, it still kind of gives me the creeps to this day. Anyway, the story began, and because of how young I was, I don't think I was listening. Either that or I wasn't even there for most of the episode, as I genuinely have no memory of it. And so anyway, I kept watching as you do when you're a kid, and I really wanted to see what happened to this kid. The skeleton didn't really scare me at all, and I don't really know why, but then we got to this bit and my heart was racing. The thing that really pushed me over the edge was the exchange that I talked about earlier. Something about the way Nigel Planer delivered that wail. It was so unnerving. And that's another thing I haven't even talked about this video. Nigel Planer's incredible performance as literally every character in the show. So this episode's about vanity, and this kid named Jumbo Ferrari is always placing too much importance on his appearance when he sees an advert in the newspaper for a shop run by the Old Tailor of Pelting Moor. So he goes there, literally takes his skin off, and is turned into a very ugly person to be taught a lesson about not to be vain. Anyway, I had to explain to my parents what I saw, and there was actually one more thing that I remember telling them about, and it was the kids' popcorn. I didn't like bugs then, I still don't like bugs now, but looking back, I really appreciate the stop motion work that goes into that. Just look at it. I suppose that's why The Old Tailor of Pelting Moor is one of my favourite episodes. Just nostalgia talking. And that was my childhood experience with Grizzly Tales. Just like everybody else's, traumatising. Overall, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids is a really weird mix of quality, insanity, and very, and I mean very, unfortunate children. If you want to check it out, there is a playlist of every episode on my channel, and you can even watch the episodes that aren't on YouTube by looking at the description of the playlist. While Grizzly Tales is definitely not the best show in the world, I really do love it. If you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned a ranking video of every episode in the series. It should be on its way soon, just like many other videos I have planned, though it is going to be a long one. I've got 105 episodes to rank after all. I hope you enjoyed this silly little rant video, and I hope you check out my other videos too. Thank you. Hello, if you made it to the end of the video, then thanks. I know that people's attention spans grow thin nowadays, so it's nice to see that some people can actually pay attention, or at least sit through a long form video. If you like this kind of content, then definitely subscribe, as I have many more video essays on the way. I've got a few for Minecraft, a few for Star Wars, and one that displays my most controversial opinion that I have. Like if you enjoyed, and drop a comment and tell me if there's anything I could do to improve. Thanks for watching, and cheers.